First time I saw one of these bikes, I was at BMAD Bike Festival in Paynton, and I remember seeing the bike and thinking to myself, wow, look at the size of that thing. It is a substantial sized bike. There's definitely no half measures here, and apparently it's quite a tall bike. Now, I'm 6'2" and I don't have a problem. But you can get a lowering spring for it if you need it. I'm not sure how much that lowers the bike by. But what I would say is, if you are a shorter chap, or you're a short bird, and you're thinking of getting one of these bikes, I would highly suggest that, if you can, try and sit on one first, see how it feels before you go looking for one. I was quite fortunate actually. When I was at BMAD, I was able to sit on one of these bikes. There was a chap there had a blue and grey one of these, absolutely gorgeous bike, and he let me try it on for size. Now, I was already sold on the idea of one of these bikes, but yes, he let me try it on for size, and I was grinning from ear to ear. I mean, I normally am when I leave that show, but I couldn't stop smiling. You know, I'd finally been able to find the bike that I wanted and try it on for size. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. But yeah, if you can sit on one of these bikes, do so, just to make sure that they do fit you. Now, the other thing that I noticed first time I saw one of these was its looks. They just look amazing. You know, if you were to see one of these at a show, parked in a row of other sports bikes, it really can hold its own on its size, on its looks. You know, it has a real presence about it, and it has those aggressive sports bike looks. It really can hold its own against other sports bikes. So I've owned this one for 4 years, and the most commonly asked questions that I get about this bike are things like, what's it like on power? Can it do 70? What's its top speed? So let's address those three things together. Power, has it got any? Absolutely it has. It's got 15 horsepower. In fact, I think specifically it's something like 14.7 or 14.8, but give or take, it's got 15 horsepower. And many people say that if you're riding a 125, you're going to have to wring its neck to get anything out of it. And that certainly is true of the bikes I used on my CBT. Now, this is the only bike I've ever owned. I've ridden two other bikes, both 125s, and yes, I certainly had to wring their necks to get any power out of them. But this one, the power delivery is lovely and smooth. It has plenty of power for a 125. It definitely has what you need. You know, if I'm driving around town, I never have a problem. I never get to a point where I think, oh, I haven't got enough power, I haven't got enough. Never. In fact, the acceleration on this bike is amazing. If you want to wring its neck off the line, the acceleration for a 125 is amazing. So will it do 70? Absolutely it will. In fact, I've just done 70 down the dual carriageway. Plenty of dual carriageways around where I live, national speed limit of 70, and I've never struggled to get this bike up to 70. Might take a bit longer than a bigger bike with a bigger engine, but 70 is not a problem for this bike. And then there's that age-old question of, oh, what's its top speed? Now, is it just me that thinks riding bikes in a straight line at speed is boring? Like, if it's just me, then fine, I'll take it. But I would rather do 30, 40 in some twisty roads, kind of like I was last weekend. I would rather do that than sit on a dual carriageway at 70. As for the top speed of this bike, you know, how fast can this bike go? Well, to borrow a phrase from a friend of mine, I'll tell you how fast this bike can go. This bike will do 70, because that's the speed limit in this country, 70 miles an hour. Yamaha claim that actually it will do 84. I've never tried, but 84 is the top line according to Yamaha. Where this bike does struggle, being quite honest, is hills. So you won't have a problem on flat ground. A little bit more exciting going downhill, of course, but when you get hills, it struggles a little bit, and you will find yourself changing down gear. If you're on a real steep hill, you'll find yourself changing down gear several times, which isn't a problem because there's plenty of them. We've got 6 gears on this bike. I remember one of my CBT bikes going for that 6th gear and it wasn't there because it only had 5. 6 gears on this bike, and if you are on one of them steep hills finding yourself changing down gears, then the gorgeous analog rev counter won't hesitate to go 7, 8, 9, 10,000, and even at 10k revs, I've never felt like this bike was going to explode into a million pieces or anything like that. I've had this bike going up hills at 9, 9.5, 10,000, and it's not where I prefer to be, but you have to do it. You know, you have to change down gears on hills. But even then, it did it. You know, it wasn't a problem. But yeah, don't expect to be going up hills at 70 miles an hour. 70 is kind of reserved for your flat ground and your downhills. That rev counter though, it is my favourite setup. Digital dash, analog rev counter. And I know they changed that for 2nd gen. Don't even know what 3rd gen of this bike actually looks like. But 1st gen, I love that setup. I would love for my next bike, in fact I would love for all of my bikes in my future to have digital dash and analog rev counter. It's perfect. One of the things that does annoy me about this bike actually is that it's going to need an oil change every 1,200 miles. Yeah, 1,200 miles for an oil change. Your oil filter, you do it every other change, so your oil filter will do 2,400. But yeah, oil change every 1,200 miles. So back onto the positives then. Fuel. I don't know what the MPG is of this bike, and I've never tried. I've never run any tests to see what the MPG is of this bike because I use it recreationally. I can tell you it is amazing on fuel. I have looked, I have asked others. Some people claim that they'll get 70 mpg. Other people will claim that they'll get 100. Can't tell you what it is, but it is bloody amazing. If you're only going to ride your bike at weekends and for fun, then you're not going to have a problem with fuel. By far, my favourite thing about this bike is its looks. So we've spoken about what makes the bike go. Let's talk about what makes it stop. Single disc, and would you believe, a Brembo caliper. Beautiful thing. And they even gave us, and this is just me noticing little details, they even gave us a Brembo front lever. The rear, it's not a Brembo, this caliper. They've tried to colour code it so it matches the front, and they've got close. I'll give them that. You know, 9 out of 10 for effort. It looks alright, but it's not a Brembo. Now, I was expecting, being a 125, to have skinny tyres, and whilst they're not the big fat chunky tyres that you'd get on more powerful sports bikes, they're actually not that bad. The front is a 180, these are 17-inch wheels, and the rear is a 130/70, and yeah, they're certainly not the thin little tyres that I thought they would be on a 125. They're not bad at all for a 125. Now, it does, of course, sound like a 125. Doesn't sound bad. It definitely doesn't sound bad for a 125. And you can get aftermarket exhausts. I did have an aftermarket exhaust on here, but I found it was obnoxious. It was stupidly loud. I couldn't hear myself think. I swear my ears were bleeding at one point or another. And the bike didn't run properly with it. The bike surged. I don't know how else to explain it. It definitely didn't run properly with the aftermarket exhaust. It's like the revs would rev right up and then right down and right up and right down, like it was, the revs were pinging up and down because of that exhaust. So I went back to the standard exhaust with a little bit of carbon wrap on it. Now, this is the standard seat, and in my opinion there's nothing wrong with the standard seat. I've never slid out of it. I've never had a numb rear end. It's quite comfortable, and I've been out on this bike for several hours. I've never had a problem with the seat. What I will say though, there is no storage. You couldn't fit a sandwich in there. I've managed to fit my disc lock and cable in here, but that's about it. That's it for storage. Motobat battery. Now, one of the best things I ever did to this bike was fitting this battery. The standard battery is absolutely crap, and I had plenty of starting problems, and as soon as I changed over to this, on the recommendation of other YZF R125 riders, I changed over to the Motobat battery, and I've had no problems ever since. As for the riding position, well, admittedly, I'm very used to the riding position, but it has been described by many people as quite a sporty position. Your legs are up, you're leant forward. I have no frame of reference. For me, this is it. It is what it is. This is the way. But yeah, it is quite a sporty position apparently. Backache, a little bit. Maybe once or twice in the 4 years that I've owned this bike, I've had a little bit of backache. Now, I do have a sensitive back, and the fact that it's been fine for me, I'm really happy with that. A little bit surprised. I thought I might have some more problems. A few people have claimed that they've had backache from sports bikes. I know I'm not the first person. But yeah, 4 years, and once or twice when I've been out like all day on the bike, then I've got a little bit of backache. But that's the only problems I've had riding this bike. Now, some of these bikes are getting on a bit. They first started making this first generation model in 2008. So the oldest ones are now 14. And they ran in production from 2008 up until 2014. You can still get this generation of bike. They're a little thin on the ground now, but if you jump on eBay and have a browse, you'll find them. Likewise, jump on Auto Trader, have a browse on there. No doubt you'll find a bunch on there. Oh, look at this one. This one's nice. And then of course there's other places like Gumtree and Marketplace. I don't think even today that you'll struggle to find one of these. If there's anything else that you'd like to know about this bike, drop me a comment and I'll try and help out. I'll try and answer any questions that anyone has got. But yeah, if you are out looking for one of these bikes, happy hunting.